Hi, I'm Tom Hardiman. I'm part of the staff here at MorningStar Ministries in South Carolina. And I'm here with Al Wood. Al Wood's also a member of our staff here and has been, actually, we've both been on the staff here for 22 years.
Yes.
And it's been an amazing journey. I want to tell you this is that the people that are on our staff are really outstanding individuals. And each one of them has a special experience and a special message that we can communicate. Al and I have an athletic background, and some of you would be familiar with Al. Al played at the University of North Carolina under Dean Smith and actually has a history of playing for some great coaches. There are five outstanding Hall of Fame coaches that he played for either in college or in the NBA. And this series is going to be dedicated to talking about concepts that Al and I have learned with regard to team ministry. Now, you may know this from following MorningStar Ministries. I also had an athletic background. I had a college scholarship. I played the D1 basketball for 4 years. And then I was selected to play on the Olympic team in 1972, which took place in Munich, Germany. I played team handball, and I also played in the World Cup games, 1974 in East Berlin in East Germany. And so periodically over the years, Al and I have compared notes about the concept of team ministry and how some of the things that we learned in sports have really translated really well and have been messages to us about how we can be successful in whatever role in life we have. And so, Al, tell us a little bit about some of these coaches that you played for and some of your background, and maybe we could even touch on how you came to the Lord.
Right. Well, first of all, just when you first starting out in sports in particular, you really don't know anything.
Yeah.
So you really rely on the head coach to be able to teach you some things, and you are all ears. You're listening very, very closely at that point because you don't know what to do. So, and you want to learn, and you don't know what you don't know. So it's so important for the head coach to be really skilled in leadership as well.
Yeah.
So once you, I think, start to learn things, and once you start to pick up on things, I think the people who really excel are those who go beyond what is I call the norm. They go farther beyond. They do a lot of stuff outside of practice in which they try to learn things. They try to know what is it that make other people successful. So you want to look and see what is it that's making other people successful. And I need to look at those, not what the people who are losing or the people who are not being successful, but the people who are being successful. Let's see what they're doing.
So some of the coaches that you played for, and I'm just going to enumerate some of them. The first coach that you had that you had in college was Dean Smith, and if you follow sports at all, you would know this man. He was an outstanding coach. I believe he coached at Chapel Hill for like 36 years.
I think 36 years, yes.
What an outstanding career. And then there was individuals like Larry Brown, and if people follow basketball, that name is not a strange name to you. Dick Gavin, you played for him on the Olympic team. You were on the Olympic team in 1980.
Yes.
And so one of the things that we have talked about or exchanged is with an individual that's a coach, sometimes there's more that's caught than is taught. And so tell us about Dean Smith and the person that he was and how the life that he lived inspired you.
Yeah, first of all, you as a coach, as a pastor or business or whatever, most people have a reputation that precedes them. So you have a guy like Dean Smith. Before I ever got a chance to meet Dean Smith, I had watched him coach the 1976 Olympic team.
Really?
Yes. I never met him before. In fact, I actually sent a letter to him when I was in high school asking him to come watch me play.
Really?
A lot of people don't know that. They just assume that, you're All-American. Everybody watch you play. Everybody's coming to watch you play. But in this case, I had watched the 1976 Olympic team, and they were successful. They won the gold medal, I think, in Montreal. And that thing excited me so much that I had said one day I want to play on the Olympic team.
Yeah.
At this point, I had no idea how you make the Olympic team.
Yeah.
I didn't know who all was on the team. I mean, I know who was on it from watching the players, but I didn't know what was the process.
Yeah.
And once I found out the process, I asked a guy by the name of Eddie Holbrooks, what was the process? And he told me, he said, you'll get a chance to try out one day probably because this is 1976, and when you get to be a senior in college in 1980, it'll be a perfect time.
And this was the time before the pros were able to play.
This was the time before
the
pros.
basketball in
Yes.
the Olympic Games.
Yeah, all amateur athletics. That's what it
Yeah.
was supposed to be. So at that point, I watched. In the case of Dean Smith, he was a team-oriented guy. And what I mean about team-oriented guy, he wasn't all about an individual trying to bring a lot of special attention to himself.
Yeah.
If the team was successful, his attitude was, that means that all the individuals are successful. But if you have one person who is getting the spotlight and who is getting a lot of attention, let's say for scoring or even, I know people say getting an assist is a great thing, but you can be very selfish when it comes to getting assists as well.
Yeah.
So he wanted everything to be team oriented, and he wanted us to realize that if we win as a team, then every one of you all are going to get recognized. So it's most important that we do well as a team.
You know, in 1 Peter chapter 5, it talks about leaders in the church. And one of the instructions that are given to leaders is that they need to be an example. And so tell us about the life that you saw in Dean Smith and how what he did helped inspire you to become the best you could be.
Well, the first thing about him, if he said he was going to do something, then he would do it.
Yeah.
The other thing he really taught us was how important it was for us to have respect for other people.
Really?
And what I mean about that in particular is when it comes to time. People's time is very, very important. So you need to be on time. You need to do what you say you're going to do and be where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the most important things because we still to this day have what we call Dean Smith time. So when we have our watch, we will take our watch and we will set it 5 minutes ahead of time so to make sure we wouldn't be late.
You know, the word in the scripture about being an example, the way the Greek actually is interpreted, it's like the setting of the information on a coin. And so when I have been around good coaches, I have noticed their language and whether they're disciplined in terms of whether they're correcting us in a fashion that's easily entreated or things that they do that you observe them doing off the court. And some of the great coaches that I played for made the most impression on me, not necessarily by what they said, but how they lived.
That's true. You watch, I've said many times, more is caught than taught. People
Yeah.
remember what you do more than what you say. So it's important that you be, in particular in sports, it's important that you be a good example. You can't be asking players to do certain things that you're not willing to do as well.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this, is that people are watching our lifestyles. And if you're a leader, if you have a business or whatever it might be, there are things that go on. And I'm actually really surprised at sometimes things that I do just naturally after a church service, or sometimes even I reflect back on my athletic career and some of the things that I did or said I wish I could take back. But Dean Smith was famous for some of the concepts that are still concepts in the NBA, like when you're scoring a basket. Do you remember him introducing you to the appropriate conduct that a player needed to have when he scored a basket and recognizing his teammates?
Well, you need to, when a player score a basket,
Yeah.
well, a lot of things happen leading up to that. It just don't happen. So
Yeah.
someone has to take the ball out of bounds, someone has to set a screen, someone have to make the pass, and eventually the individual have to make the shot. Well, until you get to that point, everybody has played their part and they played it perfectly.
Yeah.
So Coach Smith wanted to make sure he recognized all the people who did all the other things and not just the person who scored the basket.
So some of the things that we see in NBA games today or college games where a man makes a basket, but he received the pass from somebody else, they're pointing out the person that helped them score that basket.
That's true. That's true. He wanted to recognize the person that actually who made the pass or the person who set the screen. You'll see guys a lot of times give a pat on the back or give a high five.
Yeah.
Or they'll take and they point at that person. What they're trying to tell all the people who are watching the game is he's important. He's the person that did it,
Yeah.
and not just me.
I noticed this about the Chapel Hill teams or the UNC teams. Even now, when there's a basket scored, the team on the guys that are sitting on the bench all rise and clap. Was that part of his instruction?
Exactly. That was part. He wanted everybody to get involved in the game.
Yeah.
And the way you get involved in the game, first of all, you need to be paying close attention to what's going on because you never know when you're going to be called upon. So everybody who is sitting on the bench, he wanted all of us to also recognize the passer and the person that set the screen. So all the players would get up and they would be pointing to that person who made the pass.
Isn't that great? And that creates a team culture over time. And so that's part of the direction and the instruction that Dean had for you is that kind of instruction or that kind of response is both encouraging if you're on the court and you're sending messages when you're sitting the bench.
Well, one of the things that Coach Smith taught us was that everybody is important.
Yeah.
Everybody on the team is important. There's not one person on the team who is not important. So you got to make sure everybody stay in tune, everybody stay in touch to understand what is going on and what is our goal here, because we have a goal. And ultimately, in order for us to achieve that goal, then everybody must play their part and play it to the best of their ability.
This playing the part and knowing your role is really critical in sports. I know from following your career and knowing you, there were times where you were the main guy,
True.
but there were times that you were not the main guy on the team.
That's true.
And so part of success in teams is knowing and playing the position that you're assigned to. Can you comment on that?
Well, it's very important. I think one of the things that a great leader will do is he will sit down with all of his team and have individual meetings on a regular basis, because I think it's very important that you understand the vision of what's been cast in terms of the leadership and what part do I play in making this vision come to pass.
So Dean would actually, before the season would start, he would tell you, this is the role that I need you to play.
He would ask the question, what do you think your strengths are and what do you think your weaknesses are?
Really?
Yes. You need to be able to identify, because think about this for a second. If you have a player who think that his strength is shooting the basketball, but he's only a 32% shooter from three-point range, and he really think that's his strength, somebody need to tell him, no, that's not your strength. That's not what you do good. A good case in point would be when Roy Williams got to Chapel Hill, he was Jack Emanuel, who I know Jackie very well. He was a great, great defensive ball player. Well, Jackie was shooting a lot of threes until Roy got there. And Roy had a meeting with him and sat down and talked to him and showed him, basically that's not your strength. So let's do something a little different. I need for you to drive the ball. I need you to play good defense. And if you do that, I think you're going to help the team a whole lot better. Well, he accepted his role. He didn't shoot that many threes, and the team was very successful. They won the national championship.
Really?
So it takes a leader, a pastor, a coach, a business person to be able to be honest with his team, to tell them what he see as their strength and what he see as their weaknesses.
I wonder if these conversations are always comfortable.
They're not.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're not. But I think that as a follower or a person that's on the team, once you have a certain amount of respect for your leadership, I think you should be willing to accept what they're saying to you. And if you're not willing to accept what they're saying to you, then probably you need to maybe get on another team, or maybe they need to try to find you another team to participate with.
Well, I want to thank you, Al. We're going to conclude this session. And in the next session, one of the things that we're going to talk about is communication. I'll give you this preview. There was a guy, his name was Ted Engstrom, and he was the leader of a ministry called World Vision. And he made a certain point about structure of an organization, but this is what he said. Communication is the glue that holds a team, an organization together. It's not structure. It's not imposing these strict rules from the outside. It's the how you communicate to one another that will set the stage for your success. So we're going to continue with this series on team ministry, and we're hopeful that God's speaking to you as we're talking about areas in our own lives where we can be really complementary team members to the place where God's put us. Thanks.